All right, welcome back, guys. So, very special episode. It's the last episode of our first season. We will be back again in September after we've had a little bit of a rest and a rethink about where to go next. So we're going to go straight in and talk to our guest, Erica. Go on, would you like to introduce Aron and Kris that little bit more for us?
So we have here the creator, writer, and voice of the Scarecrow, Aron Toman. Of Chronicles of Oz, the popular podcast available on Spotify.
And where's Aron from?
What? I said Chronicles of Oz.
Where's Aron from?
Chronicles of Oz.
Where in the world?
Oz. Okay. Okay. No. From Melbourne, Australia.
Which is Oz. So
yeah.
That's awesome.
The literal Oz, not the fun one. Yeah, I'm in Melbourne at the moment. It's the middle of the day, so everyone's having dinner, and here's me thinking, I haven't even had lunch yet. So it's an interesting sort of dynamic going on here.
What time is it there, Aron?
It is just gone 12 o'clock, midday.
Okay, cool.
And also joining us is Kris Silva, and later they are going to talk about their up-and-coming book coming out hopefully in another month, called Straw Song, a book where the Scarecrow is a romantic hero. I beta read it, and it's maybe like one of my favorite books ever now.
Oh, that's really cool. Where are you from then, Kris?
I am in the Appleton, Wisconsin area. USA. My partner is feeding me lines over here. It is 9 p.m. I have wine to help settle my nerves here because I don't feel like things there. Cheers.
Every time I'm nervous, let's have a sip and let's get trashed.
There you go.
Oh, that's really cool. So, Aron, do you want to tell us a little bit about the Chronicles of Oz for anyone who might not be aware of the series?
All right, so it's a podcast sort of radio drama series that I adapted from the L. Frank Baum Wizard of Oz books. The way I write and direct them and play the Scarecrow and do all that fun and games in it, I take a different approach to most Wizard of Oz adaptations. I'm not quite so slavishly following the books, if we can put it that way. I describe it as it's the Wizard of Oz meets the West Wing. So it's more focused a bit on some of the political ramifications of the Wizard of Oz and what happened in the Land of Oz and the Emerald City, the chain, sort of corridors of power, people walking and talking, dealing with what happens when someone drops a house on a wicket on one of the rulers of the country, and then suddenly the whole country gets turned into upheaval just by one person turning up into a magic land like that. We've done 3 seasons so far of the first 3 books. I'm working on the 4th one now. It's just taking a bit longer than expected to write. And we've done an adaptation of the Christmas story, Life and Adventures of Santa Claus. So we did put that out Christmas last year.
Oh, cool. Mr. Chase, you got any more questions for us?
Yeah, so I know that you play the Scarecrow in the Chronicles of Oz. Out of the 3 seasons, The Wonderful Wizard of Oz, The Marvelous Land of Oz, and Ozma of Oz, which one would you say was your favorite season to be in?
Oh, it's like saying which is my favourite child. I did re-listen to them all this past week just to sort of refresh myself, and I found myself, even though I knew what was happening, I knew I wrote it and did it, The Marvelous Land of Oz really sort of kept me, I kept wanting to hear it, even though I wrote it was my thing, but I kept wanting to listen to it and say, okay, what's happening next? What's going on next? Everything in that season really came together. The performances, the acting, the script sort of flowed a bit better. But there's bits I love in all the seasons. I love the way there's certain things in the third season, Ozma of Oz, where I refocused it to focus more on Ozma rather than the way the book handled it. And some of the themes and stuff that go in under that really sort of get me excited. But of course, the first season's fun to listen. I enjoy, it's got a tour de force performance from Cara Dennison playing Dorothy, doing all that sort of, really sort of selling the Land of Oz in a way of what it would be like for someone who's, finds himself dumped into a strange land with his talking scarecrows and talking lions and wicked witches and, field mice and all that sort of thing. So, yeah, they're all my favourite. I like them all.
Awesome.
That's good. Erica, do you want to ask Aron a question?
Yeah, so what drew you to Oz? What made you come up with the idea of, hey, I'm going to make a podcast, audio drama about Oz?
Well, I was once upon a time, basically 20 years ago or so, I sort of started making radio dramas based on Doctor Who. I'm a bit of a Doctor Who fan as well. And I was sort of doing them way back in the day. I always had this idea of wanting to do sort of they were fine, they were enjoyable. I put them on the put them up online for people to download. And I was at uni, and I remember sort of getting sort of back into the Wizard of Oz as sort of a thing that I used to like when I was a kid. There was I used to be a bit obsessed when I was growing up with my very first version of Oz that I saw was the Sinar anime TV show, the one from the 80s. Mm-hmm. And when I was watching that, I remember, as an 18-year-old, just gone to uni, and I thought I had this vision in my head that I wanted to sort of recreate that series. And just to sort of, because it wasn't widely available to watch at the time. It is now. It's on down in the thing over there. So I tried making it. So I sort of thought, well, why not do an adaptation of The Wizard of Oz and start the books and sort of reinterpret it, a bit more as a sort of more realistic-ish, within reason, because Wizard of Oz. But sort of reinterpret, but try and do as a radio play then. It didn't quite pan out because I was still very inexperienced and didn't quite know about it and hadn't discovered the West Wing yet, so I didn't quite know of a sort of avenue of way I could do it. But the idea sort of, percolated and sat around until about, probably 7 or 8 years ago. I decided finally sort of pick it up and have another go at it. And yeah, and it's sort of continued on since then.
That's really cool. It's very professionally done. Mm-hmm. I'm not fully. I've only done Wizard so far. I will eventually catch up. It is on YouTube. It is on Spotify. I will post a link down below when this goes out live on YouTube. So are you planning on to carry on with the rest of the series? And Aron, are you going to do the full 14 or 40 or within copyright?
My ultimate goal is to do the full 40. That's sort of going to take me a good 40 years to do in itself, going at the current rate. Plus, I also had ideas. I would love to do like the little wizard stories are in my hit list to do that as well, and maybe some of the more ephemeral ones, like Sky Island. I want to give that a go as well. There's a few of them. I would love to be able to do every single one of them and reinterpret them in my own little way. At this stage, whether we get to the 40, I don't think it's necessarily doable. Definitely I want to get through the 14. There's certain stuff in the later books that I really want to do. I can't wait to do the Tim Woodman of Oz. It's going to be so macabre and so dark with the various bits and pieces. But at this stage, it's sort of still taking it one story at a time. I'll be happy to get season 4 finished at this stage.
Oh, that's great stuff. I guess it's time to give Kris a bit of love. So, Erica, do you want to get the ball rolling with Kris? We'll come back to you in a minute, Aron.
Yep, sure.
So, Kris, where did your interest in Oz start?
I mean, like probably everybody else here, I read the books as a little kid. I can remember being 3 or 4 years old and watching the MGM film on TV for the very first time and being absolutely terrified of the flying monkeys, of course.
Those are the best part.
The witch was scary. The flying monkeys were scary. I loved the characters. I didn't really come back to it until just very recently, actually. I mean, I'd seen the movie numerous times, and I know as a kid I had read several of the Baum books. I don't think I ever read any of the Thompson books.
You don't need to.
Read one. That was enough.
Yeah. You read the worst one.
Which one was the book that you read?
Royal Book of Oz, of course, because Scarecrow.
Oh yeah, go to Kabumpo or one of the others first before you make a decision on
speaking of Scarecrow, tell us about your book.
Well, it is a dark romantic fantasy. My take on Oz is that Dorothy was actually 17 when she visited, and that Baum made up a lot of the details and whitewashed everything that he learned about Oz to make it presentable to children. It is actually a much darker, much bloodier place. There's a lot of fairy politics going on with the witches. So not unlike some of the things Aron has done in his series as well. But the Scarecrow pines for Dorothy and decides to come to our world to find her, except he arrives about 120 years too late and a few states off course. So the rest of the book is he teams up with a modern young witch named Theo, who is very brash and aggressive and in your face all the time and just, let's go do this right now, which is very much a foil for his sort of quiet, cautious, no, I need to take 20 minutes to sit in a corner and think about this before we do anything approach. So the story is basically him trying to get back to Oz and trying to find out what happened to Dorothy. Meanwhile, monsters from Oz are crossing into our world. I'm not going to reveal which ones because I had so much fun revealing them. Erica knows, she's read.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is a romance. It is adult themed. So
it's very sexy.
There is some body horror. But in the end, I feel like it is still fantasy. It is still romance. There is humor in it. So my early influences would be Neil Gaiman, Ray Bradbury. So I very much like the kind of fantasy that gathers in horror, that gathers in romance, that gathers in adventure into one whole mishmash.
Cool. Mr. Chase, you got a question for Kris.
So it's kind of a revisionist take on The Wizard of Oz.
Yes.
Perfect. So what was some of the details that you found the most enjoyable to write about with your version? Because, every version is a little bit different in their own way. And I would just love to know what brought you joy in when you were writing.
I loved writing the Wogglebug. There are scenes, there are 3 points of view. There is Scarecrow's point of view, there is Theo's point of view, and Nick Chopper back in Oz. I have several chapters that reveal what's going on back in Oz while, our main heroes are dealing with stuff in our world. There is a coup afoot. They're trying to protect Ozma. So I have the Wogglebug, I have Lion, Nick, and the Hungry Tiger as my characters back in Oz. I'm taking the first 3 books basically as canon, except, again, Baum whitewashed them. So think the first 3 books, but way darker. But yeah, I tried so hard to think of puns for the Wogglebug. I only got a couple of them worked in, but he's so much fun to write.
Is such a good character. Like, if any of you are familiar with Brandon Rogers, he would voice I was reading it in his voice, that character. Like, it's perfect. He's like so gay. I love it.
So when's the book out then, Kris? So it's
next month, August 2021.
Next month.
We do not have a exact date yet. I'm basically spending the first month of August doing rewrites. I get the book back from my editor then. So I am shooting for mid-August, and I will be announcing the exact date. And we will have order links up on Facebook and Twitter. I will be posting in all the Oz forums that I'm a member of course.
I know.
We'll put an ad out on the OzConnect page, OzConnection page.
Yes, and I think Colin, you have the file. I didn't know at what point you wanted to show it, but cover reveal.
Yeah, I sent it. I sent it to you.
Let me just get it on Facebook now.
So I'm curious. Is there a happy ending to your story, or?
It's a happy ending, all right.
Oh
So
gosh, I walked into that.
what kind of happy ending are we talking about here?
Again, I will just state again that this is a romance. So, yes, there is a happy ending. It may not be the ending that some people want. It definitely leaves things open for a sequel, but I tried to tie everything up in one book package because I personally despise authors that do cliffhangers from book to book. It drives me crazy.
Agreed.
So I'm going to show this piece of artwork now. So I believe this is a premiere of the cover. Is that right, Kris?
You guys are first.
Okay, here we go. So who's the illustrator, Kris?
The illustrator, let me put her name in chat, is Sandra Chang Adair. She does take commissions. She was extremely nice to work with, and she did this on a very tight deadline. So I have any of you fellow authors out there who are looking for somebody to illustrate, I would recommend her.
And the image itself, is this that she's plucked out from the book, or have you specifically asked for kind of vision?
This is actually a little bit of a mishmash of two different scenes, but the main pose of Theo and Scarecrow there is from one particular scene in the book when they find themselves suddenly besieged by a monster, and I'm not going to say anything further than that because that was one of the more fun scenes that I had writing. I will say that Theo's magical talent has to do with the fact that she makes dolls.
She reads what?
She makes dolls.
She makes dolls.
Yes.
Got it.
A little bit. So, Aron, the next series that you're doing is Dorothy and the Wizard of Oz. Do you have a date yet then for that?
No, when I finish it. Yeah, the original plan with all of these was to do maybe one season a year, but that sort of got the production and stuff sort of spaced out a little bit. Then we had last year, which was virtually a write-off for everything. So it means we couldn't access our recording studios or anything like that, and the writing of it just sort of slowed down big time with everything else going on. So yeah, unfortunately no date at this point, but I am writing it. I started the first draft, well, probably a month or so ago, but then other stuff has come up to then. I'm most of the way through the first episode, trying to sort of, getting to know these brand new characters that are coming to this season. But yeah, the plan is hopefully get it written within the next couple of months and then recorded early next year is the plan, depending on availability and what the world can do. And so that means it'll be released probably this time next year, is sort of extrapolating that out. But hopefully quicker than that.
Oh, cool. So do you want to give us a little bit of more insight then into the recording process? Because I mentioned earlier, it's very professionally recorded, very high quality. So kind of give us a little bit talk about what you guys do.
Yeah, so we've got a mixture of cast from local to Melbourne, so people that I know from the local theatre area that play some of the parts. Plus, we've got international ones that sort of record their own parts separately and send them in. Kara's one of those. Kara's in the audience. Hi. So we've got it's a bit of a mix each season. I know when we did Wizard of Oz, we had maybe 4 people in the studio, which I think was, or maybe 5 people at the most. Marvelous Land of Oz, we had roundabout, we had probably 6 or 7 or so at one time at various points, because suddenly a lot of the cast turned out to be local ones. When we did the Christmas special last year, they were all completely remote recorded because we couldn't get the studio anymore. So we've got a little studio in, it's in one of the public libraries that we go to. It's in Docklands, which is a suburb of Melbourne, where it's a very sort of, it's a tiny little studio, fits maybe 5-6 people in there, but it's a good little space to record in. And occasionally we'll do other bits and pieces, like have people come in, like to a lounge room and to record, bits and pieces, catch up other bits, or people who aren't available on the day. We try and do as much of the recording with everyone in the room as we can get, not counting the remote people, but it doesn't always happen that way. And sometimes we just have to piece performances together from, recording at different times and so on. So like last season when we did Ozma of Oz, we had a weird situation where at no point did the Scarecrow, the Tin Man, the Lion sit in the same room at the same time, meanwhile they had big chunks of the story where they're doing we did the entire scenes together, but we either Tom was away, who plays the Lion. He couldn't make it to one recording session. Scobie, who played the Tin Woodman, couldn't make it to another one. So, yeah, what we do then is after we've recorded it all and got it all laid down, we piece it all together. And then try and piece it together, put the sound effects in. Tony Diana does his wonderful job with his music, which is so amazing. He's responsible for that theme song, which is still my ringtone. It gets stuck in my head on a regular basis. And then it all gets put together. There's me and myself and David Nagel, who plays on Biambi. He does some of the sound design as well, and then it gets sent out.
Yeah, I love that theme song. It's so epic sounding.
When I remember when I first heard that, it was the very literally like we were planning the very first recording session. So we were going to do for the very first season. I think it was just going to be Tin Man Scarecrow, and it was Tin Man Scarecrow, and I think the Wizard was coming in on one day. And it was the day before, a couple of days before, I was with Daniel Burnett, who's a sound engineer. He sort of presses all the buttons in the studio because I'm too busy acting and directing to press buttons, and I don't know what buttons I'm pressing in that room. It's scary. So, but I was with him, and we were planning it how the recording session was going to go. And then Tony sent me an email, and he goes, "I've got you." He'd been planning out this theme. We talked a bit ideas back and forth, and he sent me a version of the music, and it was like, and we're sitting at a cafe in Melbourne in the CBD, and I put it on. I played it for Daniel as well. And I was like, "Oh my god, goosebumps!" It was perfect. It was exactly what I wanted. And this was like 3-4 days before the recording day, and between that and the recording session, I listened to it like 100 times. I just kept playing it over and over and over again, this extended version of the theme music. I just couldn't stop listening to it. Which is why there's a scene that's where the Scarecrow's stuck in the on a pole in the middle of the river, that sequence, where I had to be singing something. I think when I wrote that scene and when I put it together, the plan was I was going to be singing Over the Rainbow or something ridiculously obvious like that. But I thought, no, I have to sing the theme song. This theme song that didn't exist less than a week beforehand. Now suddenly I had to go la 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 la, and yeah, it's sort of become it became a ringtone instantly. It's still my ringtone on my phone. I just can't. It's amazing. He's done it's a real earworm of a song, and I'm never get enough of it.
I remember once you said on Facebook, even like the Tin Woodman, your actor uses a bucket to speak into to make his voice sound like that, right?
Not quite a bucket. No, that's a sound effect we put on top of it, but it's the same sort of effect. It sounds like it's in a bucket. Yeah, it's all digitally done. It's not a physical.
Huh.
Tempting as that would be.
Can he?
Oh, that's really neat.
Can he still use the voice? Can he still make the voice with a bucket?
You could. I don't see why not.
I suspect this is
if he ever finds his way over to this side of the ocean, tell him to bring a bucket, and that the safe word is oil can.
Oh, Eric.
I thought I was probably going to go there. Eric has things for the Tin Man. She's got Tin Daddy issues. I've said it before. I'll say it again. So I'm going to.
I wanted to say that. I've been wanting to say that for a while. I've been waiting till this moment to say that.
Oh, bless.
So, Kris, do you want to tell us a little bit about?
And make sure he tells me to shut up, please.
How much are you,
Kris? I don't think the trouble is, I don't think she's drank anything. That's the biggest concern.
No, I haven't. This is just water.
Erica, down.
Yeah. Kris, do you want to tell us a little bit about the process and of how you write? How have you gone about this then?
Well, I work a day job, so basically any time during the week or especially on the weekends where I have several hours, I'm not one of those writers who can, I have 15 minutes, I'll jot on something. No, I need at least 4 hours to get completely immersed in it, which is why I'm taking an entire week off to do the rewrites, because I will need it. But I have all my Oz stuff around me as I write. You can see some of my things in the background here. Normally I have these set up on my desk here, and my Scarecrow Tulpa is always with me. He and Tin Man over here sit and read everything that I write and give me feedback on it.
That's great. Is that just to give you that bit of inspiration when you're writing? Yeah. Is that a similar thing for you, Aron? Because at the moment, I mean, you're probably like me. Sometimes you're just in your nook for filming, but obviously behind you, I can see a few bits of Oz Books of Wonder, some ruby slippers.
Yeah, homemade ones. They're not sort of. I got bored one day on holidays and decided I'm going to make some ruby slippers and stuck a whole bunch of sequins on the shoes.
Do they fit you? Have you run around the room in them?
Everyone asks me that. Do they fit? Have you tried them on? Do they fit? They don't fit. They're too small. I bought them because they're op shop shoes, and I got them because of the shape of the shoe. Because they look more. Because you go into op shops, secondhand shoes, and they're all sort of very 80s modern styles. But these ones had the right shape that looked like the ruby slippers. So, but they don't fit. No.
How did you do the bows on them? I tried to do that. I just couldn't get my bows to work.
They're little pieces of felt cut in the shape of a bow. I think I got them from
Clever.
Native shoes, and then just stuck little plastic gems on top.
Oh, that is very clever. Now I know what to do. Thank you.
That's good. Mine would not look great if I was to do that myself. It'd be more, like you see those nailed it videos. Just look really, really terrible with the bow half hanging off and a bit of a nail glue. That's not my level of organisation. Chris, have you got any silver slippers or ruby slippers?
I was going to say, I was very impressed with this. This is my first attempt with a glue gun, and so that was a learning experience in itself.
There is a market out there for making replica ruby slippers, so you might need to get yourself out there a little bit more.
I've had people telling me, "Oh, can you make me some? Can you make me some?" I thought, "No, this took me all day to do myself, and my thumb got numb."
Chris, have you got a pair of ruby or silver slippers at all?
I do not. My focus is much more on Scarecrow. I admire people who make very realistic props, slippers or Glinda crowns or anything like that.
But Scarecrow's your main passion, pretty much.
Scarecrow's my boy. Yes.
Scarecrow to her is like Tin Woodman for me.
Yeah, I gathered that. Does your partner have to? Does your partner have to keep you away from straw? Is it that kind of level, or not quite?
I have to left right here.
That's great. I think maybe it might be now a good time to open up the floor a little bit for any of the people dialed in who might have some questions for Aron and Kris that you may or may not be aware of their work. So this is maybe a good time to ask any questions. So I did see actually Ryan J.
Gwen's asking
a little bit further, but did have a question for Aron. Have you ever considered adapting one of your radio shows to a stage or film production?
Yeah, and actually that was one of the plans I was doing before COVID and everything started happening. But one of the things I really want to do right from the outset is do a live version of the Chronicles of Oz. The idea was sort of, load, hire out a stage, get the cast, more of a local cast than the remote ones, unfortunately. But, get us onto the stage, perform it, in front of microphones, record it that way with a live audience. That's one of my goals and my dreams, to do that. Years ago, I tried writing a version of the Patchwork Girl of Oz, which was going to be a musical, and actually a lot of that's probably going to turn into the season 7 version of Chronicles of Oz. I wanted to use a lot of the original, 1902 Wizard of Oz songs and things like that, and try and work that into the story. So I thought that's sort of like the reverse, where I had a stage production I wanted to turn into a radio play. But yeah, definitely, I would love to turn it into a stage play. But yeah, that's a bit further down the line, I think.
And there's a question from Glenn for Kris. What's your publishing platform?
I go through Greythorn Publishing. I just put a link in the chat. They're a small indie house. I have known the publisher for many, many, many years. I actually started as her editor, and have edited most of her Haberdashers series, which is Regency Romance. So we've known each other for quite some time, and when I had my first book last year, I asked her, would you like dibs on this? And she was like, yeah, absolutely. So I've done all my publishing through Greythorn. And honestly, I very much prefer working with a small house. I have much more control over every step of it, which is nice. I hear horror stories from some of my comrades who go through larger houses and they have editors assigned to them and they have cover art assigned, and no, I get final say on everything. So much prefer that.
That's great. So Lark's got a question for Aron. Is there a large Oz following in Oz AUZ, I guess?
Yeah, not really. I wouldn't, everyone's familiar with the movie. They know MGM, they know LaJudy Garland and everything like that, but no one really, Wicked's big around here as well in the sense of the Broadway musical sort of world. But that's probably the limit of it. There's not really a following of Oz as itself, as in the Bond books and the original stories. They're sort of, it's very niche. People were aware of them generally from when I've spoken to people, but they're not really sort of. It's not like it doesn't have. We wouldn't have this sort of convention in Melbourne, for example. It wouldn't sort of have. If it was, it'd be sort of a smaller part of a bigger science fiction and fantasy sort of.
So I guess it sounds very much like England as a collector. That it's very again the books that you've got, and most of them come over from the USA.
Yeah, those ones are
Australia.
These are from Books of Wonder. Is where I got them. A lot of these, and just occasionally you'd go into an op shop and you'd find, some sort of Oz-related books. You never find anything like you can find a copy of The Wizard of Oz anywhere. Any bookshop you walk into, there's The Wizard of Oz. But you'll never find a Thompson book or any of the later post-Baum books. So they never show up in any bookshops around here. You have to order them specially. Yeah,
it's pretty much the same over here. There's a question from Jeffrey Young, Erica, if you want to cover that one in the chat.
Yeah, I think this was for Chris, I believe. Did I hear mention of a gay character?
Yes. Nick Chopper in My World is Gay.
You're going to break it to Erica like that?
Yes.
I got excited.
and I did go into Ozma being trans a little bit because I was never happy with where Baum went with her character. I always felt, I love Tip. I always felt, Tip was a brawler. Tip was a street rat. And I felt like more of that personality should have carried over when she became Ozma. And it always annoyed me that, especially in some of the later books, Ozma is depicted as very, almost wallflowery. She's like almost kind of just, let's throw the fairy queen in this book as a placeholder. And that didn't sit right with me. So in my books, she is referred to as Ozma Tip to demonstrate that people are aware of both sides of her character.
Kris, could I ask you something? Do you find nowadays we're in a modern world where people are very open about everything? I personally find when I read a book and it doesn't have gay characters, I feel like the world is flat and not correct. Do you have that kind of feeling when you read books now? Because I don't know any people who don't have gay relatives, gay friends, and it just isn't like a natural world if there are not gay people in it to me when I read a book. Do you find that?
Gay and BIPOC, yes, I would say very much so. I feel like there needs to be much more exploration of that. In my book, Nick is gay, but it's not a big deal.
Yeah, that's the way
everyone's at least a little gay.
Well, maybe
the Wogglebug is very gay.
He's gay. I love it. He would be like my best friend.
There was another question, Kris, about, from your point of view of writing, how is Nick gay with Baum's backstory of his love for a Munchkin girl?
I felt that that's the perfect explanation from it. He talks in the Wizard of Oz about Nimmy and how he got all the limbs chopped off and then didn't love her anymore because he no longer had a heart. I feel like that's an excuse. It takes him how many books before Tin Woodman and Whoop shows up and says, "Hey, how come you never went back to that girl anyway?" And Scarecrow's like, "Yeah, how come you never went back to that girl anyway?" And so they have this whole quest. But I feel like it makes perfect sense if Nick is gay and never really felt that way towards Nimmy. Maybe they were really good friends, but he didn't have a romantic or a sexual interest in her. So I feel like it still works in canon that way.
I had canon as always that he was pansexual, but that's just so I could call him the Tin Pan.
Is that because he's made of tin? I don't think it's unfair. I know there's a lot of fans out there, gay fans, that kind of have this kind of gay romance thing with the Scarecrow and the Tin Woodman anyway.
Tin Crow.
It's not necessarily something I particularly felt, but I get why some people kind of see that. Their camaraderie and they're very close in the
can
books.
See it. I feel like they are extremely close friends. But
they're gay.
As a writer, I have to say, I'm so happy we're past the day where all the books are filled with maiden aunts and bachelor friends, but there's no reality and no reality of life and people's interrelationships in them. And I'm really glad to see that day has ended. And among other writers, I'm seeing it too. It's just gone. It was never real, never realistic, and I think it took away from the stories that we read.
Oh, I agree.
Yeah.
Aron, I guess whilst we're on this subject, in your interpretation, do you have any gay characters in your version of Oz?
I probably haven't thought about that closely, to be honest, because it doesn't really come up in the stories. I think it's one of those things that, when you're busy having adventures of running away from colliders and, wicked witches and all that sort of thing, who you're attracted to doesn't really come into it. It doesn't sort of come as a topic. Dorothy's definitely going to be straight because she's getting a boyfriend in season 4, well, ex-boyfriend. There's a whole thing with Zeb, which is going to be hilarious. I can't wait to write it. I am thinking Ozma might be a bit queer. Is my theory at the moment. I don't know how that's going to work into the thing because I've had this sort of a bubbling idea that she's got this unrequited crush on Dorothy. It's sort of in the back of my head. Whether that comes out particularly well in the story or not, I don't know how that's going to work. But that's sort of something I'm thinking about there. It's one of those stories where it's definitely a possibility for any of the characters. But yeah, it just depends on whether I have the right story, whether it makes sense within the story I'm telling at the time.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Tim, I think this is directed at you, Aron. So Tim Tucker has said, do you have any trepidation about writing a darker version of Oz since the approach has been used often over the past 30 years?
Yes and no. I want to do a different sort of dark version of Oz than the other ones you sort of see. You get a few like Tin Man when they did that version about 10 years ago, and Emerald City recently. They're sort of the same sort of thing. They have their own takes on them. They're interesting, but I like to sort of see it as I'm going for a sort of mid-range. I'm not going for the fluffy, happy original Wizard of Oz or, singing and dancing and GM sort of version. I'm going to something with a bit, that sort of through line of the humour, a bit of fun, a bit of enjoyment, but taking all the threats seriously, taking everything that comes up in the books as a serious, credible thing. So there are consequences. It's not so much, I don't see it as dark, it's just there are consequences when things happen. So when you kill the Wicked Witch of the East and the Munchkins no longer have a leader, that doesn't sort of just go away and be good. That actually has ramifications all the way through to season 4. They're still dealing with it. Things like, if suddenly Dorothy turns up and within a week there's both the West and the East have lost their leaders, so as wizards run away and they've got a power vacuum of someone who literally is a week old is going to be the person now running the country, that's not going to go particularly well. And Bomb sort of does that. In the next book, he gets invaded really quickly by an army who, I took that and basically thought, okay, if this was going to happen, how would it look like? What sort of thing would you be sort of going into that where, we've got some random person who thinks they can do a better job running the city. General Ginger comes in, and my version of her is a lot more, what's the word I'm looking for? More intense, more aggressive, because that's the sort of person who would have to be to do what she's actually, the physical things that she's actually doing. And that's the sort of, so yes, it is darker, definitely has a darker tone, because, she's like, when Ginger turns up, she's fighting with swords, not knitting needles. But I want to keep that, try and keep it as light as possible as well, and keep that sense of fun. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. And I think from what I've seen of the series, it's still very much entrenched in Bob. You just put extra layers there and extra darkness there, but it's not. A lot of the newer versions of Oz these days just go so far from the original Bomb text that it's almost not the same story anymore and dark for the sake of it. I guess, Kris, that question could transfer to you as well with your adaptation as well, about any trepidation with writing darker versions of Oz, since that's what the approach has been used in recent years.
No, I did quite a bit of reading. I mean, yes, I've seen a little bit of Tin Man. I've seen a little bit of some of the other series. I read the entire Dorothy Must Die series, which was a lot of fun, but definitely not the direction I went. I've read, there's a great, I wish I brought it over here, a great short story anthology called Shadows on the Emerald City that's all very grimdark Oz fiction. Wonderful, by the way, if you're into that. No, I mean, I know my book is not going to be for the type of Oz fan who prefers the children's version of it. And that's great. I am all about kids' books. I have Frog and Toad over here. I love Frog and Toad. I love the original Oz books, but I just wanted to do something that was a little more adult and a little more realistic while still incorporating elements of fantasy and elements of horror.
Yeah, that's cool. At the end of the day, you need to write what's in you both, I guess, is the main thing. I think if we all were to reinterpret the books in any way, we'd all take a different slant on it, even if we were going to keep it more, child-friendly or more adult. We'd all probably, from our own experience, go, okay, if I'm going to do Wizard of Oz and Marvelous Land, these are the bits I'd change or change the tone of this or whatever. It's just interesting to see that take. So thanks for that question, Tim, because that's helped out a lot. Does anybody else have any?
I was going to add to that sort of. I was going to say just to add to that sort of the thing with the original Oz isn't going anywhere. The original Bombs Oz is still there. There's a lot of adaptations out there that take the original books and do it the way that Bomb intended. You've got, even in the radio play space, you've got a whole, every adaptation of The Wizard of Oz does it more or less the same way, with the same sort of, either they take the book and replicate it exactly, or they do it through an MGM lens, but it's all done. I think it's more fun to do something differently, a new version of it, a different take. It may not be to everyone's feeling of it, but at least it's there as an option. You've still got the originals that will never go away.
Yeah. Go on, Erica. You were about to say that someone had a question.
Oh, it was a question for Aaron. What podcast do you listen to or recommend? But is that what you just...
general podcasts. What do I listen to? I listen to a lot of writing podcasts. Is sort of my thing at the moment. So there's one called Script Notes that comes out midweek. That one I've been listening to for ages. Writing Excuses is another one. As far as radio drama podcasts, I don't listen to many podcasts as such of those. I'm very into Big Finish, the ones that do the Doctor Who radio dramas. They're my go-to. I've listened to them all the way through. There's a lot of anyone who knows Big Finish and their production thing, if they've heard the Gallifrey series, that was another huge influence on the Chronicles of Oz, the way they interpret the life and the ruling of Time Lords and everything like that. It's the same sort of I'm trying to go for the same vibe as the early seasons of that.
Yeah, I do listen to some of the Big Finish stuff, and I did definitely get that kind of vibe, because that's also a very good, high quality production values. Yeah,
David Nagel, who does half our sound design, actually worked for Big Finish as well. So it's a good sort of it's a reason why it sounds a bit similar.
That's really neat. Kris, what other books do you write then? So I'm getting the sense that you've written more than Straw Song.
My first book published last year was called Wendigo, which is a horror comedy. If any of you have ever seen the film Cabin in the Woods, that is my favorite comedy of all time, which will give you an idea of the direction that Wendigo goes. It's got Northwoods monsters. I live here in Wisconsin, and so I did a deep dive into Ojibwe mythology and legends about the Wendigo, about Nanabosho. There's a underwater panther creature called the Mishibishu, and she plays a role in this. Basically, that one is all about a nerdy bookseller named Morty who comes under a curse, finds himself craving human parts, waking up covered in blood, that sort of thing. And he sets off to figure out what happened to him and how to stop it, and his life just gets worse and worse and crazier and crazier. But there is a lot of very dark humor and snark in that. And then, my partner is being wonderful. This was my first novel, Wendigo, though. Second one actually kind of sparked Straw Song. Second novel, which came out earlier this year, is called Straw Man. It is not an Oz novel. But while I was writing it, I started thinking a lot about Scarecrow, and that got me to rewatch the film. That got me to reread the books. My editor for Straw Man said my main character, Cassie, who's a witch, she's like, Cassie's so isolated. You need to give her a friend. And I went, okay. So I came up with Theo, and Theo took over. Every scene I put her in, she stomped in her big combat boots and her punk rock jewelry and took over every scene I put her in. I went, okay, she needs her own book. And she just seemed like the perfect foil for Scarecrow. So I ended up writing not really a sequel to Straw Man, but it does use some of the same characters. Cool.
I have a question for
Straw
Kris.
Songs will be the my third novel, but my first OzCon.
Like a companion novel-ish?
Yeah.
Ish.
Sure, ish.
Was that Oz that had a question for Kris?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
So this question's for Kris. Whenever in your writing process, do you put yourself or some of your life experiences in your writing?
I think every writer does. The overall arching theme in Straw Song is all about love and acceptance. Scarecrow doesn't believe that he is as good as a real man because he's made of straw and his brains had to be magic ones given to him by the wizard. He did not start out with brains, even though as readers we all know that this is a panacea that was given to him by the wizard, who was a con man. But Scarecrow fervently believes that he was nothing before this. So he comes to our world both craving love and terrified that he's not good enough.
The storyline will rip your heart out. You made me feel things. Why do you make me feel things?
The horror. But yeah, I feel like the theme of love and acceptance and being accepted the way you are and accepting others that way is the main theme of the book, quite honestly.
I don't want to accept myself as I am.
We accept you anyway.
No, I won't.
That's really cool. Because we're coming towards the end, I'm going to ask the question that we often ask people on their first interviews or discussions, and that is, and I'm going to go with Aron first. What's your favourite Oz book, Aron?
Patrick Girl of Oz. Easy. It's
you didn't even have to think about that.
No, I am looking forward to big time that one coming up. I love Marvelous Land of Oz as well because it's so rich and so interesting. But Patrick Girl of Oz, because Scraps is such a fun character, she walks in like same way as the other character, stomps in, just basically takes over the story and does what she wants, and just the whole thing is so fun. You could see it turning into a stage play and turning into a musical and extravaganza. So yeah, definitely my favorite. That one's my favorite. Cannot wait to put that one together. It's going to be hilarious. Definitely, it's going to be.
Say, do you have an outline in your head already for that one? Because you're obviously naturally linked to it.
Yep, it's going to be a musical. Is the plan?
Have
not decided what exactly the music's going to be. Tony and I are in discussions whether it's going to be original music with original songs. We put an original song in the Christmas special last year, and that was sort of a test in the water to see, can we write original songs? Can I do it? And can I do the lyrics for it? Can he do the music for it? And that worked well, so that sort of might be there. My original plan was I was going to have all sort of other Oz songs, like everything from the 1902 musical through to the Wiz, through MGM. I had this fun running gag where Dorothy keeps tries to sing Over the Rainbow and everyone tries to keep stopping her and won't let her until toward the end where Scraps and sings it and just ends up with a big fight with her and Dorothy, which would be fun. My plan with that one, my theory on Scraps is she's a bit like the Deadpool of the Oz world, where she
yes,
she's the what?
and she knows
the Deadpool.
She's going to be breaking the fourth wall left, right, and centre.
Oh,
and
I love it.
Yeah, they're going to be looking around going, "What?"
you may not have the budget for this, but can you please get Whoopi Goldberg to play Scraps? Because that's in my head when I read Scraps. That's the voice that I have.
Oh, in a perfect world, yes, I would. I don't know how well it's going to work, but we'll put it on there.
I'll call her for you. We're on first name basis. Kris, so same question to you. Not about Whoopi Goldberg, but your favorite Oz book.
Favorite Oz book, definitely Marvelous Land of Oz. That to me really explores more of Ozma's backstory, obviously, and more of the friendship between Scarecrow and Nick, which I love. So, yeah, definitely without a doubt, that would be my favorite.
Is there any other themes within the book that you particularly, it's one of my, I like the book, but I think some people really identify with it and some people don't.
With Land of Oz?
Yeah. So is any kind of the other themes within the story that, really click with you?
Quite honestly, there's a lot of wonderful literary humor going on in that. I mean, the Wogglebug's throwing down puns every chance he gets, and the whole rest of the party is all, stop that, what did we tell you? And, Nick brandishing his axe threateningly at him at one point. I love the interactions between the characters throughout that entire book. It feels much more genuine to me than some of the ones that came after.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. So thank you both for coming along to our first ever live OzConnect. It was great. So cheers, Aron. Looking forward to Dorothy of Oz. And Kris, looking forward to when Straw Song comes out. So give us a shout. Mr. Chase, thank you for coming along. Erica. So do you want to let people know what to do, Erica, to carry on continuing to connect in with this program if you're listening on YouTube?
Okay, so if you want to keep getting updates on this show, make sure on YouTube to like the video so we can keep getting more views, and to subscribe to OzConnection so you can keep getting more updates on this show and other stuff on the channel. And
comment down below. We really want to know, particularly in your comments, about where do you want OzConnect to go in the future. So OzConnect was created to promote OzCon, but also have a wider conversation about Oz. So we've got a bit of time to say, right, when we start again in September, what direction would you guys like to see? Because at the end of the day, it's about you guys enjoying what we put out there. But thank you guys. Have a great evening. We've got literally a minute left before Eric comes on with his presentation. So cheers.
Thank you, everyone.
So glad I could finally see you, Aron, and you too, Kris. Bye.